everybody. Welcome to River City Media's Beyond the Booth. I'm the Howard Chaney along with Phil Harris, and our special guest tonight is Mr. Jon Holder. John, sorry about all the technical issues that we had coming on a little bit late, but we finally got it straightened out.
I think that's on my end.
Well, usually the ones that knows more about this is the ones that has the most trouble. So, we won't let those coaches over in Calhoun or Etowah or any of that know that you had trouble getting on when they get on with the click of the button. But anyway, now, John, we appreciate you coming on and appreciate your time this afternoon.
Oh, I enjoyed it and looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, wait till you see some of these questions we ask you. You may not look forward to it then. Um, but this is kind of the quiet before the storm. Our friend Coach Sam Graham always says, when the fireworks go off, football season's starting. And fireworks goes off Friday, so I think everybody kind of hits it hot and heavy come Monday.
I think that's exactly right. With the high school football media days has kind of changed all that. We used to not have media days. It's really just something that's come about in the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. Now every county that I'm aware of, this whole part of the state and your part of the state, all have media days. It's made our job easier, I think. But it begins football season about a month sort of earlier too.
And what I like about the media days is you pick up the paper or you hear on the radio about this player and that player and so forth and so on, but you finally can put a face with a name.
Absolutely. You know what? I think too, from a media perspective, what it does is it gives us not having to track down coaches all summer long. Trying to call them on their cell phone, catching them on their vacation, catching them at home, at the office, or in between. They are there and they're set and they're there for one purpose, and that one purpose is to talk to the media. And so that saves me, I'm sure you guys are the same way, saves you a lot of time and hustle in the summertime when you got all those guys in one place.
Yeah, and yeah, we're here in DeKalb/Jackson County. We have both of those on the same day. The morning time is usually DeKalb, the afternoon is the Jackson. But anyway, if nothing else, you get some coaches together and hear some pretty good stories while they're able to tell it before each one of them has to take the stage.
That's exactly right. It's a good thing.
Yeah, Phil, I know you're looking forward to this, so I'll turn you over to Mr. Holder. Phil, you there?
Well, John, again, welcome in. You and I have crossed paths several times, got to speak on several occasions, but it's good to have you on, get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here for sure.
Well, first thing I want to ask you, yeah. Well, the first thing I want to ask you, of course, I want to ask you a little bit about your wife, Lynn, and you've got a daughter, Lauren. Tell us a little bit about your family, and also how did you and Lynn meet?
All right. So we met, I guess, relatively speaking, late in life. I think I was probably a confirmed bachelor. It was going to be that way. It looked like for I thought forever. Uh, we had never been married. We got married. I was 30. She was 33, and so we were way behind everybody else. That was our both of our obviously first marriage, only marriage. So we met in church. I was attending First Baptist Church of Sax in Anniston. She was attending there. That's a big at that time was a really big church, large church. So I didn't really know her. I kind of knew who she was. I thought she was married. I didn't know you don't have social media back in those days to look somebody up. But that's how we met. Was we met through church, and that was back in 1996. I guess we dated for almost 2 years before we got married, and it will be 27 years in August that we've been married.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, tell us a little bit about your daughter.
Well, my daughter is 20. She's the only child we have, and she is about to begin her junior year at, I hate to even say this, we're a split family, and she's beginning her third year at Auburn, and I ain't Auburn at all. Hardcore Alabama fan. It's weird because high school football, I could care less who wins and loses. I just love high school football. I don't have a favorite team that I pull for. Haven't done that in 40 years. But college football, I don't have to be neutral, so I'm hardcore Alabama. But my wife is Auburn, and she turned my daughter to the dark side. So she is beginning her third year at Auburn coming up in August. So it's interesting around the house. Hadn't been too interesting the last 5 years because and six might be coming this year. So we're I told her to fear the thumb, and now like Tuberville said, fear the second hand. So we it's interesting around our house football season for sure.
Well, what drew her to Auburn? I mean, what is she going into?
She is in hospitality, so she wants to go into. She's had a summer job working at the Marriott Resort down there in Opelika, where they have the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail, and they have they have a spa there. She worked in the spa there this summer. They have to have a certain number of hours in hospitality, so she's wanting to go into, putting on meetings, events, hotel, that kind of thing, corporate meetings, those sorts of things. That's what she's going to go into. It looks like at this point in time. She better not change again.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting field. That you kind of think about. She kind of follows in your footsteps. People.
Phil, you froze up on me there. I couldn't get the question. If you could repeat that, I think your video froze.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if mine. I was going to say she's kind of following your footsteps, being a people person.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, Phil. This is the greatest misconception about me that there is. She is a people person, and my wife for sure is a people person, but I really am not. This is, as you guys have been in it. This radio and television and now streaming thing is a performance. Like right now, I'm in a studio by myself, sitting in front of this phone and the camera. I'm comfortable in doing that, but I'm really not a people person. I have always been a loner, very much a loner. I've always had a very tight circle of friends, a lot of acquaintances and people I know. But she is actually, and she has that personality. She has that going out and meeting people and things like that. And it surprises a lot of folks, but I really have always been a very shy person. That surprises a lot of folks. Extremely shy person.
Well, talking about that, I'm basically the same way. I'm saying I've got a close knit of people, but now I get out in the public and whatnot because it's part of my job and part of doing the broadcasting is you put on that show, you put on that front, and you kind of sort of hide that shyness into talking about sports because you find something that somebody's interest in you focus on that. But I am too. I'm basically the same way. When I get away from everything, I like to be alone.
Yes. Yeah. I relate to that totally. That surprises people because they see you on, television, radio, things like that. And they don't realize that on Friday nights when you're there at WQSB that, there's only about 4 or 5 people in that building. And we got a few more down with what we do with after the game on the streaming end. We got a few more people, but basically in that studio, it's 3 or 4 people. And that's the way it is now. There are thousands and thousands watching, but they're not there in person. That would probably be a different animal if I was, on stage or something like that for sure.
Yeah, well, and I understand that too because I'm not a spotlight type person. I like just being part of the crowd. I don't really like to stand out. That's not my nature. That's not my personality. So I like being that kind of sort of, I didn't know who you was. I kind of sort of like it to be that way because I just don't seek that limelight. Well, John, of course, you went to school at Spring Garden, and you and I have, kind of sort of parallel stories to tell. You were at Spring Garden when I was at Valley Head. Your dad was a football coach, and it's kind of strange that you went into broadcasting rather than coaching, even though a lot of your life was spent around.
Well, Phil, I've thought about that a lot. Here's the deal. I am a coach's son, but there's 2 really big things that happen along the way that make me not your typical coach's son. First thing is my dad got out of coaching for 6 years in the 70s. So from the time that I was in kindergarten up to the through the fifth grade, he didn't coach. He was a junior high principal, and then he got into private business for 3 years. So those 6 years, those formative years, those years that I was basically, kind of, I guess casting the die, so to speak, of what I was going to be interested in. We're around. I knew my dad had coached when I was, a toddler and, in preschool. I knew all about that. And we still went to, high school football games, still watched football and all those sorts of things. But I was not really, I wasn't around it every day until my dad came. He was head football coach at Piedmont twice. He came back to Piedmont the second time at the beginning of my sixth grade year. He was, that's when I really kind of, it was not until I was 12 years old that I really got into day to day, every day, being at football practice. So I wasn't like a lot of coaches' sons that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that I was at football practice every day and all that. I wasn't. I didn't have that experience till I was about 12 years old. The other thing is, my dad actually, when I was at school at Spring Garden, he was driving back and forth from Spring Garden to Gadsden because he was coaching at Litchfield in Gadsden. He was the head baseball coach, defensive coordinator, offensive line coach. And so he was commuting that 25 miles down Highway 78, 278, back and forth. So because I love Spring Garden so much, I wanted to stay at Spring Garden. And so he commuted back and forth to Litchfield. So I didn't play for him. Uh, he was coaching at one school and I was playing at another, living in the same household. And so, as far as being the typical coach's son, I really didn't have those kinds of experiences that like a Bill Clark or somebody like that would have.
Yeah, I understand. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure you've been told this. Why didn't you go into coaching? And I've been asked the same question because I played football. No, to myself, I think I know a pretty good bit about it. But the thing was, I loved broadcasting more. I knew when I was 9 years old that I wanted to do some form of broadcasting. Football was second. And so that was my obvious choice. When I first got out of high school, I thought about going into coaching, but my love for broadcasting. But at that time, it wasn't a very popular field. Now it has really grown. So I just kind of sort of stayed with it as a hobby. And I'm sure that was that way for you too.
Phil, that's exactly right. When those formative years when I was growing up as a kid, radio was so huge in the 70s, as you know, 70s and 80s. And I wanted to be a DJ. I didn't want to be a sportscaster. I didn't want to be on television. This thing about being on television and all this video stuff, I had no aspirations. That never crossed my mind. Even in college, never crossed my mind. I was wanted to be radio. I was Casey Kasem, American Top 40. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sit there and play music and, and be on the radio and take requests and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really want to be, it never crossed my mind till probably, to be honest with you, till I was in college, about anything to do as far as being a sportscaster. I was ready to go and be a DJ on a big radio station in a big city somewhere.
John, I can see you being like the next
Yeah,
Dr. Johnny Fever.
I understand. I understand. Yeah.
John, I can see you being the next Dr. Johnny Fever off of WKRP in Cincinnati.
I had a conversation with someone about Dr. Johnny Fever today, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it was and if I, and that was the way it was. I'm like you, Phil. I had never did I have never crossed my mind to be a coach because one, I don't know the X's and O's well enough. I'm not tough enough to be a coach. I'm not that disciplinarian. The Lord just did not give me those gifts. He gave my dad those gifts. My dad, was one of those guys that had every gift and check mark you needed to be a coach. And I think I had none of them. So I never had aspirations to be a coach, but I loved sports and wanted to be around it. And so as time moved along, those doors kind of opened up for me.
Phil, are you there? Well, that we've lost Phil. His internet connection a little sketchy tonight for some
Yes.
reason. So So did you grow up watching WKRP? Did you watch some of it as you was growing
Yeah,
up? Did
I did
that
that.
even give you more of the bug to do it?
Yeah, probably so. Back in those days, you only had three channels that you could watch. So a show about radio obviously would have been at the top. So yeah, I watched WKRP in Cincinnati for sure.
Yeah. As you can tell, Phil left us. So let's talk about getting into it. How did you actually get started into the radio field?
I went to Jacksonville State and majored in communication. I knew I wanted to go into that. Probably knew I wanted to go into radio, but and that's kind of where I started. I didn't have any experience whatsoever. A lot of these guys, you hear about these guys that are on the radio when they're 16 and 17 years old, and that wasn't me. The first time I ever was on the radio, I was my senior year in college. I was about 23 years old, something like that. And I went to WGAD in Gadsden. They had a Friday night scoreboard show. I kind of thought I might want to do that. I didn't know anything in the world about how to do that. So I went down just to volunteer and observe. They made me a sideline reporter. I became a sideline reporter for their game of the week. And then I would come back and observe how they did the scoreboard show that they did after the games. This was a small AM station there in Gadsden. And then the next year, the guy had done the scoreboard and moved on to another station. They needed someone to do it. Mike Hathcock, legendary guy in broadcasting, especially in Cherokee and Etowah counties. He went to the station management, went to bat for him and said, Jon can do that show. And so they took a chance on me and away we went. That was in 1991.
Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, okay. So I'm back. I don't know. I must be having some internet issues on my end, evidently. Uh, Well, you went on and did that. Of course, you've had you jumped ship and been done a lot of different things. You've worked for the Alabama High School Athletic Association Network. Have done shows there. I know you were on EAC on Channel 24 and did TV there. So you've jumped around at a lot of different things. Is that been a lot of your interest, or is there been something you kind of been trying to find that was kind of home?
It just kind of it evolved. It just kind of evolved out of the radio thing. I was where you are. I was with 4 years at QSB with Jeff Allen doing the Friday night show, and TV 24 came about. They were on campus in Jacksonville State at that time with their studio, and they came to me and approached me about doing a video television Friday night post game show, kind of like they have in the bigger cities, but none had ever been done around here, and so. I had some ideas about how to do that. We launched that thing, I think, in 2003, I believe it was, maybe 2004. And, it just really took off. That was still at a time when everybody had cable and everybody watched television. And it was just huge. That kind of evolved into the things with the AHSAA doing the state finals and Super 7. And I'd done a lot of radio work with there. And then now it's evolved just like you guys, streaming is where it's at. And so now we're streaming and we do our Friday night show called After the Game that is streamed on Facebook and YouTube. And that's where it's going. And we've been doing that this will be, I guess, 6 years coming up doing that. And it's been a great success as well. So I've been really blessed, making that move from radio, still involved with radio with my full-time job, radio to television to streaming all along the way. I've always been a writer too. So I've been the editor of about 20 high school football preview magazines, and that has evolved too from a print magazine that we used to do, and now our magazine's totally digital. We'll come out with that in August and have previews of about 50 teams in this part of the state, and it's all digital. You sit there at your desk or on your phone or whatever and read the thing. We don't have a print edition of that, so it's all moving in that direction. Everything is.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about, that has really evolved the radio industry is technology. And of course, I do a lot of writing too. And, but it's so strange. And, Randy's one of the ones that taught me in doing podcasts. And I thought I'd never do this. But the more I do it, the more I enjoy it. And Howie can tell you the same. You get to know folks on a different level. And that's what makes this interesting. It isn't just about football, and that's what makes this a lot more fun for us in broadcasting.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's not the time constraint. There's not the FCC things to deal with that you have to do. There's not as many rules and regulations. To be honest with you, there's not as much equipment that can break down and go wrong and things happen there. So, and you reach an unlimited audience. You're not limited by where those radio waves or those television signals go. Uh, just today, we're a little bit behind the game a little bit, but today is the 26th anniversary of Grace Radio. That's where my full-time job is, a Christian radio ministry here in Anniston and Gadsden. And today, also on our 26th anniversary, we began streaming for the first time. We've been behind the curve on that, so it was a big day for us. And it's huge because a lot of folks wanted to listen to Grace Radio. They couldn't do it until today because they couldn't pick up our radio waves coming off a mountain out in Ohatchee. And now you can listen to Grace Radio anywhere in the world. So yeah, it's changing bigly and quickly.
Of course, that's one thing I was going to ask you about. You are, since you brought that up, you are the general manager of Grace Radio, which is 90.7 FM, WGRO or GRW actually. How did you land in this position? It's a nonprofit organization, so it's private funds is basically where the money comes from. How did you end up at Grace Radio?
Well, I all my radio had been in sports, and it all had been on the side. And I was actually working full time running the convention center here in Anniston. I worked for the city of Anniston running the city meeting center, which was brand new in downtown Anniston. We were doing 1,300 events a year in that place with a staff of 4, including me. And and I was doing all this radio stuff at Alabama 100 back in the day and all that, all those things on the side. And a gentleman by the name of Aaron Acker. Aaron, I didn't even know this. I went to church with him. He had a license, building permit, I should say, for a non-commercial, nonprofit Christian radio ministry. He wanted to put a station here in the Anniston-Gadsden area. Wanted to put that station here. He was running out of time. This was 1999. He had to build it before the end of 1999, or he was going to lose that building permit from the FCC. So he called me and said, I'd like for you to run it. And so we built this thing from scratch, from nothing. Mike Hathcott, going back to him, he's an engineer by trade. And Mike built this whole station. That's where I am right now. I'm sitting here in front of the console. And we came on the air June 30th of 1999, 26 years ago tonight, as a matter of fact. And I've been here for 26 years. And Aaron has been so great. He's been so gracious to continue to allow me to do all this football stuff on the side. And so it's been really the best of both worlds. I couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah, I guess in a position you're in, I guess this is one of those jobs you don't mind coming to work every day.
I don't. I've never had. The only times it's been a little bit rough is when we've had transmitters go down. Go back to those equipment things. We've had transmitters go down, power outages. We're off the air. We're on a mountain out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a storm, trying to get back on the air. But even then, it's okay. Well, I've never had a day where I've dreaded. Never had a day where I've dreaded coming to work, for sure.
Well, I want to ask you about this faith. It has to be a driving force. I think that a lot of the things that I do it's what behind that. I tell Jeff a lot of times, I said, Jeff, when I'm out in public, I said, we do God's work, and I don't think we really realize it, that you inspire others. And so your faith is very important, and it's a big part of who you are.
It is. Obviously, being in a ministry here, I've been also 26 years on the board of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes in this part of the state. On the Save a Life board for a lot of years. That's a crisis pregnancy center, which is Christian based here in Calhoun County. It's a huge part of that. God has so richly blessed me with some gifts, with some opportunities, with great health. So far in my life, I just can't put into words what Jesus Christ means to me, and how good he has been to me, how good he's been to my family. And through the good days and the bad days, his love for me his love that he has for all of us, and the fact that it's hard for me to even put into words what Jesus Christ and his love for me and his love for our world and the sacrifice that was made on the cross for him, for us, what that means. It's just hard to put into words. We start thinking about the creator God of the universe, that we have a personal relationship and he cares and loves us enough to make the sacrifice that was made on the cross for us. Is that's hard to it's hard to put into words, hard to fathom and imagine.
Oh yes, and I've asked, why, things maybe why I haven't been put on a bigger stage and make a living at what I do, because most of my radio has been kind of more hobby, and the answer I get is you're not built to be on a bigger stage. He's, follow the path I've given you, and your riches will come in time, and I just kind of sort of abide by that because he opens the doors I need to be open. He's not always going to give you what you want, but he's going to give you what you need.
Yes, I've never, except for the first job I had with the city of Anniston, where I was a marketing and PR guy. That's the only job I've ever applied for. Every other job has been not me. Every other job has been God opening a door. He opened the door. I just go and do the job that you're doing the best that you can do to the best of your ability every day, and keep your nose to the grind, so to speak. And then God will open the doors. And that's exactly what's happened. He has opened the doors. I've not opened any doors. I've not knocked even on any doors. He has opened every door that I've had in my entire career, except for that first one, and of course he opened that one too. But and that blows my mind. That's kind of my philosophy. I My wife accused me a lot of times of not being very ambitious, and to be honest with you, I'm really not that ambitious. I've never had aspirations to be on ESPN or anything like that. I just wherever he's placed me, do the best job you can, and if he's sovereign, he's in control. It's a very small thing. If he wants Jon Holder to be on a bigger stage, he can do it just like that. Even with all the as terrible as I am at at what I do, if he wanted something bigger, he could make that happen. He has chosen not to. He has chosen to put me here. I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. I love what I do. Can't imagine doing anything else.
Come
Yeah,
on, John.
I
Keep
think,
it bringing it.
yeah, yeah,
Don't stop now. Come on now.
yeah. Hey, and I can understand what you're coming from because, I feel that way. I don't think I would do good on that bigger stage because I think I'm, and he's kind of sort of put that to me is I want you eye to eye on a personal level with everybody, standing eye to eye where you can reach out and touch somebody on the shoulder, because you inspire people that way. When you're on the big stage, and I've kind of heard this before, sometimes the people around you don't know you and you can forsake others. Where if you're on a personal level, it means a whole lot more and you can reach people.
I think so, and I've always been Phil. One of the other things you and I have in common is, if people don't know, it doesn't get any smaller than Spring Garden and Valley Head. So
Yeah.
I've always been a small school guy. I've always been a small school guy. That's just and I've always had an affinity for small schools and small towns. So I've never really wanted to be on a big stage. I'm perfectly happy on Friday nights. No offense to Oxford or Gadsden City or Pell City or any of those folks, but I'd much rather be in Ranburne or Raglan or Gaston on a Friday night. Just me personally, that I'm more comfortable there. I don't say I'd rather be there, but I'm more comfortable. That's the small town country guy in me. I'm a lot more comfortable at Gaston than am at Gadsden. I'm a lot more comfortable at Munford than I am at Oxford,
Yeah, more small school, community oriented, where everybody knows everybody. Yeah, I understand where you come from. Well, John, your show after the game, a lot of your area is that St. Clair, Etowah, Cherokee, Calhoun counties. Is that the big focus, kind of, sort of, for your radio station? Because that's a pretty big area right there. But is that kind of your main focus?
Yeah, I would say Gadsden, Anniston, but really what we do every Friday night, as far as giving scores and talking about those kind of things, is AHSAA District 6. I often call it the District 6 scoreboard. And District 6, for folks that don't know, that's Cherokee, Etowah, St. Clair, Calhoun, Cleburne, Randolph, Clay, Talladega. I think that's it. I think I got them all. And so
Yeah.
that's 8 counties. And so that's where our focus is solely on those counties until we get into the playoffs, obviously, and then we have really, I guess the hyper focus would be on Calhoun and Etowah counties, Gadsden, Anniston.
Yeah, I understand. Well, what are the things you try? Do y'all try to give scores? Do y'all do a lot of interviews? I've never really got to listen to the show because I'm busy doing my own. So, do y'all do a lot of interviews on there, or just mainly keep up with the score part of it?
Well, we're a video show. So the thing about it
Yeah,
is we're Facebook and YouTube. So we have photographers going out. So we'll have highlights of about 10 to 12 games that we'll show highlights of. We'll have all the scores graphically. We'll actually have a scoreboard with all the scores, records. We have a segment called Region Rundown, where we run through in real time that night, update the region records and all overall records for every team in all the regions around. We have coaches that come live in the studio. We have a cheer squad of the week. That cheerleading squad comes live in our studio. We may have 30 cheerleaders in there kicking off our show. We have a couple of coaches. They'll bring players. They're live on the set with us as well. And then, we have segments like Team of the Week, Player of the Week, Play of the Night, all those kind of things. So we're a video show. We run through all the scores. We got a ticker at the bottom, just like you'll see on ESPN, where we, run through all. We'll have all the scores all night long, scrolling at the bottom. Then we'll have a couple of times we actually run through every score in depth, where the records are displayed, tidbits about each team while the game was important. And we did some things. A lot of that goes back to stuff we did at 24 that I brought with me when I started this my own thing. We were kind of a trailblazer. We kind of I don't know that there's anybody in America that was doing what we were doing on Friday nights, and I'm not sure there's anybody now because we're on for like 3 hours with a video show. A lot of the big city television stations have a show and they may be 35, 45 minutes. Ours is 3 hours of video. So it's pretty interesting, and that's a lot because we have a crew of we have a outstanding crew. I can't say enough about the people that we have. I'm just the ringmaster. I'm not. This is we got about a dozen people that make this thing go because we got directors, we got graphics people, floor managers, photographers out running the roads. I go out with a photographer with a crew on Friday. We hit 2 games. We may start in Piedmont, come to Jacksonville. We may start at Gadsden City, come to Glencoe, then back to Anniston to our studio. And then we've got photographers. We got about 5 photographers that are hitting 2 games every night. So we're all over the place bringing video. And in our part of the state, nobody's covering those games. Nobody's covering Jacksonville Christian with highlights. Nobody's covering Cleburne County and Clay Central with highlights. We're the only ones doing it.
yeah, yeah. Because a lot of that area is kind of a dark area. When you get past, like Anniston and whatnot, you don't. It's hard sometimes to even get scores from down in those areas. Well, tell me this. Name some. I mean, if folks are watching, name some of the people in your staff because I know they don't get many shout outs. Give a few shout outs to the people who help you on your staff.
Well, Michael Short, who's a retired coach at Cleburne County High School for many years. Once he retired, he joined the staff as one of my co-hosts. We also have a guy that was with us at 24 during those years. Great guy, consummate professional. Chad Barnett is the other co-host. Those are the only air people you see. But then behind the scenes, we got Nathan Gober is a guy that kind of runs the engineering part of things. And then we've got Charlie Hinkle, a guy that does our graphics for us. Bailey Morris, who is Swain Morris, former Gaston head coach. That's his daughter. She teaches that at West End, but she works with us on Friday nights. And then we got 2 great directors that step in there and direct us, Chris Cheatwood and a guy from Jacksonville State, Kyle Routman, that comes in and helps us. We are losing this year one of our key people, Jordan Smith. is not going to be back with us this year. Still helps us a little bit on the side, but he was a director for many years, getting us off the ground. Byron Wheatley, guy that runs our sound for us. We've got Jeff Sparks going to take over this year as our floor manager. Cameron Greenwood, guy that came in last year just as a new guy, learning, going out and shooting and all those sorts of things and doing that video. We got just a great staff. And then Katie Edwards, her husband, is the longtime offensive coordinator with Clint Smith at Jacksonville High School, moved to White Plains with him this year. Katie Edwards is our sales and marketing rep. And I say it all the time, there would be no after the game without Katie Edwards. And she's the coach's wife, so she gets it. She understands what it's all about. That's a great step. Hope I haven't left anyone out. Oh, my man that goes out with me on Friday night's got two guys that accompany me on Friday night. Don Wilson, just kind of my right-hand guy. He's a postal carrier in the city of Anniston. And then also Tyler Schmidt. He's my photographer on Friday nights that goes out with me.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be glad to hear their names. Well, we're going to see folks media days. I'll probably see Cherokee County and the Etowah media days, I'm sure. Around in your area, who are some of I know Steve Smith at Westbrook, he's kind of expecting his team to kind of make a mark. Who are some of the teams that maybe, of course, Piedmont's going to be Piedmont, from around your area that you may see that's going to kind of come out of the woodwork? Coosa has been good. Talk about some of the teams we're going to hear a lot of from this fall.
Yeah, I think if the teams you mentioned, I think Westbrook and Piedmont, I think that'll be the region title game at the Field of Champions in late September in that 3A Region 6, I think it is. Also, you did mention Coosa Christian. I think they would have won the 2A last year. If they're eligible this year, and that'll all be decided before the end of July. If they're eligible this year for the playoffs, I think they will be the favorite to win the 2A again, loaded. A team that we have traditionally is not a team that you talk about when you talk about being the top teams, but a team that's going to be very good this year is Pleasant Valley in 2A. Pleasant Valley 8-2 last year. Their only two losses were to 10-0 Pisgah and 10-0 Spring Garden. I think this will be the best team that Pleasant Valley's ever had in school history. I could see them anywhere from 8-2 to maybe even 10-0. That'll be a big ask to go to Pisgah and win. But I fully expect them to be about a 9-1 football team, best team they've had in school history. Piedmont loaded again, as we said. Alexandria has kind of been quiet. Last year at the end of the year, they had that big playoff win at North Jackson. Lost a close game at Brooks. They are loaded. They've got a great junior class. Todd Ginn is bringing back the glory days. I really think Alexandria, that region, that 4A region is going to be some combination of Alexandria, Anniston, who's very talented again, and Cherokee County. Cannot count out Jacob Kelly and the Warriors. The Alexandria and Cherokee County game, that game is going to be at Alexandria this year. Cherokee County's got a tough road. They've got to come to Alexandria and to Anniston. I think those three teams in 4A will be very good again. I think Oxford, I don't know that Oxford will be quite as strong as they were last year going to the semifinals, but I think Oxford has got a lot of talent. They'll be a player again. I think they'll be in there. I think Gadsden City, they just seem to reload every year. And then, on down the line, I think those are the ones that stand out. Clay Central loaded again. I know Scottsboro fans making that trip down here to Clay County. Get ready. They're loaded again. Danny Horn's got another great team. They're going to be very good as well.
Yeah, definitely so. And a couple of the teams I've heard might be, pretty good. I think, Spring Garden had heavy losses. Raglan had some heavy losses. Appalachian's still going to be pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I think Appalachian is going to be very good. And then, I think, there's a lot of regions that once you get past, I think this is one of those years where there's a lot of favorites. Like I think Piedmont and Westbrook will be the favorites in that region. You got two or three teams that are clearly at the top, like Pleasant Valley and Pisgah, clearly at the top of that region. But I think the interesting part to me this year is going to be who's going to be those third and fourth teams in all these regions. Because in all those reasons we just mentioned, once you get past those top 2 or 3, there's 5 or 6 teams that could compete for those next 2 playoff spots. That's going to be what's interesting to me. Is not going to be necessarily the top of the region this year, but those other playoff spots, who are going to come out of the pack for those, because there's a lot of teams that are very equal once you get past those top couple of teams.
Yeah, and I think a fine example of that was the region last year that Pisgah and Pleasant Valley was in. You had Pisgah was clearly the favorite, but then everybody else seemed like was interchangeable. So a couple of teams got hot, like Pleasant Valley won some close games. North Sand Mountain led a close game with Sandrock Getaway, or they would have finished higher in the region. So a lot of interchangeable teams this year. I think we've got a few great teams, but I think we've got a few what I would call not average or below average, but solid, but not great.
Exactly. I think so. And I think it's one of those years too, Phil, where I think we're a year away from, I think we've got a lot of schools around our area anyway that have great upcoming junior classes that are probably still a year away from being like state championship type contenders. And so I think we've got a lot of those teams in our part of the state that have great junior classes that are going to be really good for the next 2 years.
Yeah, but you look around even in our area, your Geraldines and people like that. We had a lot, Pisgah, a lot of deep runs in the playoffs for the last 2 or 3 years. So we're kind of due to maybe not have quite that, good a year, and maybe that kind of sort of a reloading state.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of those teams that kind of falls in that vein there that I'm really interested about, which is kind of a mystery team to me because they lost 18 seniors, is Cherokee County. Because Center, even though they lost 18, they've been to 3 straight Super Sevens, so you got to put them in the mix. I know he's got some good talent coming back. That's to me, if there's a mystery team around, I think it's Center.
Yeah,
Phil,
I think you could be right there.
We got a question from Byron Stinson. He's asking about the Welborn Panthers this year. Your thoughts on that, John?
Welborn, they lost their quarterback at the end of last year, went to Hope Christian to play baseball and basketball, and I understand he's back now to be the quarterback at Welborn. I think Welborn's one of those teams that is going to be, I'm not sure they're going to be like the top 2 in that region, but they're one of those teams that will definitely be in there in the mix for a playoff spot, along with Ohatchee, along with Weaver. I'm not sure about J.B. Pennington and Locust Fork, what they've got coming back. Of course, Locust Fork lost their great quarterback. But I think Welborn is going to be Welborn. They're going to be competitive. They will be a team that will be challenging for one of those playoff spots in that region.
I had one more question, if you don't care, Phil.
Okay, go ahead.
Some gentleman by the name of Michael Short. I don't know if you know him or not, John, but he wants to know, how about the Wadley Bulldogs?
Wadley is going it. I don't know the new coach down there. His name is Dake Rivers. He came from Beauregard as an assistant. He has been handed a state championship team. Literally, I mean, not only did they win it last year, but they've got virtually everybody back. I don't want to put pressure on that guy at all. Don't want to do that to any coach. But I mean, they are going to be preseason number 1 in 1A, and they have got an excellent shot at winning it again, going back to back. They are loaded. Jaquez Wilkes is back. Frisco Robertson is back. They got great skill people, great linemen back. Basically, that state championship team is pretty much back.
I think it's one of them you just kind of stand out of the way. Don't mess things up. Well, John, before I turn you over to Howie and let him ask you a few questions, I want to ask you about a couple of things. Over the years, who are some of the best football players you've ever seen? Of course, I know you've seen a lot of, when I was in broadcasting, there were several. Probably the best one I've ever seen in high school was Carnell Williams. And I don't know that he wasn't a better defensive back than he was offensive player when I saw him play, when I was broadcasting, when he was playing at Etowah and we played Scottsboro, or I was broadcasting at Scottsboro and he was at Etowah. Who are some of the players you've seen over the year, and who are some of the players, the new kids on the block, some of our recent kids that you've seen that really have made a lasting impression on you?
John froze up. while you was in the middle of asking that question, he's froze up.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get him back here in just a second.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if he got a phone call or what might have happened. So
Yeah,
John, if
mine.
you can hear us, if you will, well he he logged out, so hopefully he'll be back here in a minute. But yeah, Phil, I have to agree with you on that part. I remember seeing Cadillac Carnell Williams played at Fort Payne, and uh, I think that night they tried their best not to punt to Cadillac, but he got the ball, I think, 3 times on 3 punts and scored 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Uh,
he.
he-
The year I remember when they was running when Scottsboro was running the veer, we kept Etowah sold out on naturally on the running game, but we'd get the pitch out to Corey Wellington, the pitch man, and there wouldn't be nobody in the open, and all of a sudden here comes Carnell from the safety position and cut his legs out from under him before he get to the line of scrimmage, and it looked like it was six every time, but Carnell was that good. He was a headhunter, so to speak. He knew right where to be. He was an amazing player.
Absolutely. Hold on a second. Here's John back. Different location. Hey, John, I don't know if you can hear me now, but you're muted. If you will, unmute yourself.
All right. How about
There
it
you
now?
go.
All right.
All
We're
right.
back. I just had to change locations. Phil, I think the question was greatest or best high school players I've seen.
Yeah.
All right. I knew I would probably get that question because I've been doing this. I'm like you, Phil. I've been doing this for like 35 years. And so
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen a lot. The first one that absolutely comes out of my mouth, and a lot of people, younger folks have never heard of this guy, but the best high school football player I've ever seen. I don't take into account when get asked this question. I don't take into account what they did in college or the pros or anything like that. Basically, just what they did in high school. What they did in high school, the best high school football player I've ever seen, period, was Freddie Wagan, that played at Emma Sansom as a wide receiver. Went on and played at Auburn. Did play, I think, for a year or two, maybe before an injury with the Chicago Bears. But Freddie Wagan on that state champion, he was on the state runner-up team. He was not on the state championship team at Emma Sansom. He graduated a year before Larry Rose and Gene Jelks. They won it the next year. His senior year, when Jelks and Rose were juniors, they lost actually in the state championship game at Escambia County down in Atmore. But my dad was the defensive coordinator at Litchfield at the time, and they used to have the old Charity Bowl in Gadsden. And I will tell you that most years that my dad was there at Litchfield, they had to wind up. Litchfield had to play Emma Sansom twice because they wound up being the top two teams in the Gadsden area in those days. And my dad would bring the old projector home, the old projector, reel-to-reel projector, and put a sheet up on the wall, and looking at film of Emma Sansom. And we never did. And I know Gene Jelks very well, and I don't mean this as a slight against Gene at all, but we could sort of contain Gene Jelks. We had no clue whatsoever. My dad's team had no clue whatsoever for Freddie Wagan ever. They probably played 4 times in 2 years. Never, and also we never. I wish Alabama fans could have seen Larry Rose was an offensive lineman. He was the first true freshman to ever start in his first game at Alabama, that 85 Georgia game between the hedges. I wish people could have seen Larry Rose play defense. Defensive tackle, he was a monster. And I'll tell you, Litchfield nor anybody else I ever saw ever blocked that guy. But Freddie Wagan's the best I've seen. There's another guy that played. He was a all-conference guy at Jacksonville State, went on and played in the NFL, had a great career. He passed away a couple years ago, but he was the nose guard of the year in the NFL when he played for the Rams. Was a guy named Alvin Wright who played at Randolph County in Wedowee, and Alvin was incredible. I saw Jacksonville State games back during the day where they would play Delta State, UNA, Troy, people like that, and they would triple team him, and he would shed them like there was nothing and still make the tackle. Probably the best defensive lineman I've ever seen. Alabama and Auburn did not. they didn't recruit Alvin because Alvin was a little undersized. He was maybe 6'2", 260, something like that. This is in 1980, which is still huge. But Alvin went on to prove he went to the NFL, and he was as good an NFL defensive lineman as there was at the time. And he played down at Randolph County. It's two guys that a lot of folks maybe have never heard of. But if you ask me, I would say those two guys. And a third one I would add the best quarterback I've seen in high school was Jamarcus Russell at Williamson. I called the state championship game when they played Etowah on the state radio network in '99, and Jamarcus Russell was a freshman at that time, and it was mind blowing what that guy could do as a ninth grader.
Yeah, he was an outstanding player. Well, I want to ask you one more, coaching wise. Has there been coaches that you've been around over the years, maybe kind of sort of your easiest ones to interview, and maybe some that were kind of like pulling teeth that you couldn't get a whole lot out of?
I haven't had too many like that. I'll tell you the two guys. You'll appreciate this, Phil. Back in the early days, we used to record interviews at WGAD on what they called a cart.
Mm-hmm.
You remember cart machines? Okay.
Yes.
So those cart machines had only like 5-6 minutes, and so when it was out, it was over. The interview was done. You couldn't put any more sound on there. So early in my career, I was not only doing the scoreboard show at WGAD, but I was doing a coach's show every week with every coach in Etowah County. And so this was during the heyday, the absolute heyday of the Gadsden-Etowah rivalry. And two legendary coaches who I really think a lot of, Raymond Farmer, who I see Coach Farmer all the time, and then Vince DeLorenzo at Gadsden High. And I haven't seen Coach DeLorenzo in a long time since he's moved out of the area. But I will tell you, I could ask Raymond Farmer, I've never told him this, so if he sees this, he'll get this. But I could ask Raymond Farmer and Vince DeLorenzo, literally, guys, one question, and they would run out that cart machine tape. They could talk. They could absolutely talk. And guys, as you know, Hallie and Phil, when you're interviewing a coach like that, that's what you want. You want you want a guy that's going to just take it and go with it. And those two guys could take it and go with it for sure. Yeah. Vince, there's been a lot of other ones that can talk, but Vince DeLorenzo and Raymond Farmer come to mind for sure.
Yeah, my wife will tell me, she goes, y'all run them shows too long. I said, honey, when you get a coach that wants to talk, you let him go. It's his show. You let him say whatever he wants to say. That's what this is about. We're wanting to get to know him because, a lot of times when you talk to coaches, they don't really want to talk about their team in football. They want to talk about other things, flies on the wall or fishing or things like that. That's what they enjoy more of because they get tired of talking their team and they don't really want to talk about themselves. None of them hardly ever do. Well, I'm going to turn you over to Howie, but I want to ask you this one thing, though. You've been at this 35 years. This will be my 34th year. Jeff Allen has been in it for years. And, what I enjoy about you two, Jeff and you both, y'all are very professional, very articulate, very precise, like to do things the right way. That's the big stickler with him, especially. But what keeps you coming back year after year? Is it the people you work with?
Well, I think it is just, for me, Phil, I think it is just the love of the game. I don't know, Howie and Phil, I don't know if y'all feel this or not, but from the time that I was a little boy, back in the 1970s, on football Fridays, beginning that afternoon, after lunchtime, and I still feel this, certainly on Friday nights, there's just something to me, and maybe it's just me, there's just something that is different in the air. There's a special feeling that I've never in my 57 years been able to put my finger on it of what that exactly is. But there's something that's special about those Friday nights. And, going out, going to the games, being on the sidelines, smelling that grass. We got all this turf now, so that's going away. But but we've got the band comes in, and they're playing. Doesn't matter if it's a big band like Gadsden City or whether it's a small band like Gaston or somebody. Uh, that band playing, those cheerleaders, there's that feeling in the air. It is it's mesmerizing to me, and I can't imagine Fridays in the fall how I will ever be able to go do something else when we're driving. Let's just say that we start off the night in Glencoe, and we stay about a quarter and a half, and we shoot a game at Glencoe, and then we get in the car and we're flying to Alexandria, and we're arriving there maybe right before halftime and hustling to get in to get those highlights for the half, and we'll stay there till maybe end of the third quarter or something like that. We're on 431 coming down between Glencoe and Alexandria, and I see people out in cars. I see people eating at restaurants and things like that, and I'm like, what are these people doing? Why would you be why, especially in Alabama, would you be anywhere else on a Friday night besides a high school football game? That blows my mind. Well, I want to go in there and walk in and say, what are you people doing? Alexandria is playing Jacksonville over here. This place is packed. Why are you at Waffle House? And it's like, what could you possibly be doing on Friday night in Cherokee County or Clay County or Talladega County that's better than high school football? That's just me.
Well, I understand what you're talking about and what you're talking about, that special day. But when you look at it, football players, cheerleaders, band members, everybody involved with the program, it's your time to shine. It's your shining moment. Yeah, the football coaches stand aside. It's your stage. And I think that's what makes it special, because it's all about you. It's all about these people that's put the blood, sweat, and tears into all this, and it's your special moment. I've heard people tell football players, there's certain moments in your life that are special. It's like when you first get married, when your first child is born, and playing in a high school football game. You get to do this 10 weeks out of the year, and you'll remember it for the rest of your life. So, everybody that's involved with it knows how special it is.
I think we lost John again. I think John froze up, lost service again.
Yeah.
So
hopefully, when he gets back, you go ahead.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be back. But y'all are talking about what y'all enjoy about Friday nights. I enjoy going to games and seeing a school bus and trying to figure out which team that is, as far as from where it's been, which team that is. Where, who is that? And then try to pick it out before that bus gets there, and then that way, then we'll look and see who it is.
Where did they come from?
Yeah. Oh, this is one night. Me and Jamie Lee was coming back from somewhere, and I'm like, I don't know who that could be. Who could that be? I didn't think about it, but come find out it was Crossville's band coming back from Pisgah.
Uh-huh.
They had performed, Crossville's band's been performing at Pisgah for the last 2 years, I think it is. So it was Crossville's band coming back from Pisgah, but it took me forever to figure out who it was, because I know it wasn't Sylvania. I knew it wasn't Ider, because I think Ider had played at home. Sylvania was on the road, but we was coming back from wherever it was. So, but that's one of the things I enjoy about the Friday nights, is trying to figure out which bus, who it is, what team, what county they're from.
Yeah, I passed the bus one time, as I think I was on 40, and I was trying to figure out what it was. And what it was, when I finally figured it out, I had to kind of sort of think about it. But it was Galesville to Woodville is what it was. They were on the way to Woodville. So, and I finally figured it out. It took me a little while, but
that
those kind of things.
Galesville from Woodville, they had to leave like on Thursday to get there by Friday.
Yeah, that's a long way. Yeah, and it's all back roads too. There's no easy way to go. I mean,
we got John back.
We're having all kind of problems here, mate.
Yeah. Hey, that's quite all right. That's quite all right. Yeah, what I was making a point of, and then I'll let Howie go. I think Friday nights are special because all these kids, the football players, cheerleaders, band members, everybody, it's their special day. It's their time to shine. Football coaches stand out of the way. They let those kids be themselves, and it's their shining moment. And I've heard coaches say that, there's special times in your life when you get married, when your firstborn is born, and then every night of high school football is that special night for you guys. And and don't ever forget it, because it is a special night that will always last with you. And I think that us, like as broadcasters, want to continue to capture that moment, and we want to share it with the others so that they understand how special Friday night is for those kids.
Dead on. I mean, because here's the deal. These guys, the vast majority of these guys, especially in the part of the country we live in, where it's small schools, we throw out a good many college athletes. But for most of the guys that play, the vast majority, 95%, for these guys, this is it. They are not going to play college football. And this is, as you said, Phil, this is their time to shine. And so they will, I'll promise you, you probably have had this happen. These guys are going to remember Phil Harris and Jeff Allen calling out their name and talking about how many touchdowns they scored, how many tackles they had on the WQSB scoreboard. They're going to remember that 20 years from now, 30 years from now. They're going to remember Michael Short and Chad Barnett and Jon Holder, showing their highlights, showing a kid from White Plains scoring a touchdown against Aniana. They're gonna remember that for the rest of their lives. And we bring the cheerleading squad of the weekend, and those kind of things. The show the band members up in the stands. They're gonna remember that because again, just like with the cheerleaders and the band, you're not gonna see. The vast majority of those are not going to be in college bands or college cheerleaders. So you're right. This is their time to shine. And that's what I probably enjoy the most about it, is being able to shine that spotlight on these players and coaches and cheerleaders and band members, because these guys are not getting paid. They're not getting a scholarship. They're not getting NIL money. That may change in the future, but they're not getting any of that kind of stuff. They're playing because they love their school, because they love their town, they love their community, they love football. They're playing for that guy next to them that's their best friend. And it's that guy from Fife going to war with that guy from Pisgah. And it means everything to those guys. And it will for 20 or 30 years. They'll talk about those games in 2035 and 2045 and 2055. When we're all long gone to glory, they're going to still be talking about those games where they played back in 2025 against each other.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I played back in 1984, and still teams talk about that. Coaches talk about it. I mean, so you still hear it, and you kind of sort of will overhear a conversation. And then these folks, a lot of times they go to work together, and they've got war stories to tell, and that's also what makes it fun. Also, well, I'm going to turn you over to Howie. He's going to ask you a few questions. John, thanks so much for joining us. We could talk for hours, I'm sure, and one of these days we'll do it again.
Thank you, Phil. I've enjoyed it so far. Even though all the technical stuff on my end, it's been a great pleasure.
John, we had another comment earlier in the show from Michael Short saying John is the best. He took me on after retirement. So,
well, Coach has been. I can't really put into words to describe how valuable Coach Short has been to us. He knows the game, obviously. He's been a great, successful head football coach at Cleveland County for many, many, many years. But more than that, he knows a multitude of coaches, not only local coaches, but coaches from around the state of Alabama. And these younger guys and the older guys, they have a great amount of respect for Coach Short. And so he gives us a perspective that, to be honest with you, I've never had before, doing radio and TV and now in the streaming, until we brought Coach Short on a couple of years ago. We didn't have that perspective, that coaching perspective. And if you watch our interviews, when we bring that coach live into the studio, it is enhanced our show, because when you see that interaction between Coach Short and that head coach, who has a lot of respect for him and he has a lot of respect for them, and they know that that guy has been where he is on Friday nights. Sometimes a coach comes in after a loss. Sometimes a coach comes in after a big win. And regardless, he knows that Coach Short's been in that position, and he brings an element to our show that I've never really had until the last 3 years, to be honest with you.
Hats off to those coaches that comes in after a loss, because they'd much rather not
Mm.
have to deal with it at the moment. But for you to be able to get those coaches to come in on your show and talk after a loss, that's great for you to be able to do that.
Well, we try to plan it. we try to not we try to plan it where they're not coming in after a loss, but sometimes some crazy things happen. The way the scheduling works, it might be the only week we get them in there. And I have a let me say this, and I really want to say this. I have my dad obviously being a coach and being around coaches my entire life. I have been around coaches my entire life. I have such an immense amount of respect for high school football coaches that I can't even put into words and describe. Those guys, nobody knows how smart those guys are. These guys are smart guys. Don't let anybody tell you that these are just some dumb jock out there coaching high school football. These guys, especially in this day and time, these are very smart, capable men. They're very talented. They do a lot of things. They're administrators, they're coaches, they're motivators, they're fundraisers, they are PR guys. They got a lot of hats that they wear, and I say every one of these coaches do it. I feel like I hope I'm not wrong in saying this, but I feel like in the last 35 years, every head football coach that I've ever come in contact with, I felt like I had a great relationship with them, because one thing is my admiration for them, because I've kind of lived that life and seen behind the scenes, behind the curtain, at what they go through. And so, the last thing I would ever do is put those guys on the spot. Uh, not going to make their life any worse for them, for sure. I want to make it better for them. I want to find out the positives for them and point to the positives, and there are always positives. And we are blessed, guys. Y'all know this because you do this every week. We're blessed in this state, but especially in this, from Jackson and DeKalb County and Marshall and Cherokee and Blunt, all the way down to our area. We're blessed with some great men that are high school football coaches. I mean, some really great men, some great guys that I just have a tremendous respect for all of them. I felt like I've had a good relationship with them. I want to have a good relationship with them because I like them. I like all of them. They all got different personalities, but there's every coach I've ever been come into contact with. I've liked every one of them, and I've been through a lot of them in 35 years. But I like those guys. I like those guys a lot. We are tremendously blessed in Northeast Alabama to have the caliber of men we have leading these high school football programs.
John, I think that what makes it great for us is we don't root for colors. We root for people. We root
Yes.
for the people when they take their helmets off, when the coach takes his cap off. We root for people. And that's what makes it a lot better for our job because we never lose.
Exactly. I haven't wanted. Yeah. Obviously, now if we've got one of our local teams playing somebody from outside the area, yeah, I want that local team to win. But when the
Mhm.
two local teams are playing each other, I don't care. I just want a great atmosphere, great high school football game. Just enjoy watching those two teams compete with each other. But yeah, because I have no favorites in that, and uh, you know I just like them all. I think that, and I respect them all. They have tremendously hard jobs. Anybody who thinks that a high school football coach in a small town in Alabama has an easy job, they don't know what they're talking about. I'll tell you, it's a hard, hard job.
Absolutely. John, let's get to know you a little bit away from the Friday night scoreboard show and away from your GM job there at the Grace Radio. Um, what did John like to do when he's not working?
Uh, I'll tell you, my wife will disagree with this, but because she says all I ever will do is talk football all the time. And she's probably right to that. But now, uh, I do love to travel. I love to travel. I'm trying to see as all 50 states. I'm at 31. We went on our vacation back in May, and we went to New England, and we went 6 states in 6 days. We hit Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. And I love to travel. Specifically, though, everybody asks, well, what's the two things that John likes the most? Well, uh, football and riding roller coasters. I've ridden about 100 roller coasters,
Yeah.
and I'm not even close to being done with riding roller coasters. Been all over the country trying the biggest, baddest, fastest roller coasters I can find. I want to get on them. They have not built a ride on this planet that I won't get on, and that intimidates me. I love riding roller coasters. I try to build in. I didn't get to do it this time, but I try to build in on every vacation. We try to build in some city stuff. Like we went to Boston this time. We try to do some outdoor stuff. We try to do a lot of history stuff, which we did a lot of that, as you can imagine, this time going to New England. And then I tried to build in a theme park. I didn't get a theme park this time, but I tried to do that. And here's the thing that people who know me well know this, uh, but most people are just really shocked by this. But from December the 15th, 1975, when I was 8 years old, I went to my first ever pro wrestling match at the Columbus Municipal Auditorium in Columbus, Georgia. And for almost 50 years, I have been hooked. I tell people all the time that they say, you know, all this stuff about high school football. I'm going, I probably know as much about wrestling as I do football. Pro wrestling, the real wrestling.
You know, John, we have a wrestling show every Thursday night. You're
Oh,
more than welcome to
gosh.
come and join us.
Oh, mercy. Oh, that would be that's the one thing I've never done. The closest I came, they had a fundraising wrestling here in Anniston a few years ago, and Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, was there. George South, Terry Taylor, some of the names that were there, and I got to be a guest ring announcer. Brad Law, Auburn Network. Brad's from Piedmont. And Brad's a good friend of mine, and we got to be guest ring announcers that night. But I have always growing up, I mean, I watched Georgia Championship Wrestling, and Gordon Soley, who was the play-by-play guy, the host of Georgia Championship Wrestling, later Continental in Birmingham, Southeastern. That was one of the guys that really I really emulated myself after trying to be was Gordon Soley. I loved Gordon Soley, and one of the dreams I've always wanted to do is I've always wanted. I want to be a television weather guy, which I don't think you guys know this, but I'm doing that now with EAN Local News here in Anniston. But I've been a television weather forecaster for about 19 years. And that was a dream come true. But the other thing that I've always wanted to do, I never got to do, is I've always wanted to be I love Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone and Gordon Soley and Lance Russell, and I always wanted to be like one of those guys, one of those great wrestling announcers. Always wanted to see if I could do pro wrestling on television. That's the one thing I haven't done that I would like to do. But hey, the Lord hasn't opened that door for me. So anyway,
I'm
but I
going to show
love
you.
it now. I can. You want to talk? If we start talking wrestling, we'll be here till 10 o'clock tonight.
Well, let me show you what I got above my computer right here. Maybe you know this individual.
Oh, let's see. I'm having trouble finding the. I can't see. Trying to see who that is right there. That is looks like WWE is. Uh,
That's Undertaker.
that's the Undertaker. I didn't recognize Mark Calloway with the thing on.
That's
If anybody tells you, this is my humble opinion here, but if anybody tells you, if you ask them who the greatest wrestler of all time is, and these two words don't come out of their mouth, they don't know what they're talking about. Ric Flair, the greatest of
woo.
all time. And by the way, he's got melanoma, very serious. Haven't I read today where he's got some surgery, and it's a very difficult deal. He's had some skin cancer before, but he's got a very serious melanoma, and as we know, that can be a very serious thing. But oh man, I can go back to the mid '70s and bring it all the way forward, and but Ric Flair's I got to meet Ric Flair one time in Atlanta after Monday Nitro at the CNN Center over there in a restaurant, and he was just like he is on television, dancing through the restaurant, wooing, the whole 9 yards, sitting in a booth with 4 women, 2 on each side. Yeah, Ric Flair.
The owner of River City Media, Randy Cunningham, he used to work for WCW. He was
Oh
a
wow,
security
yeah,
guard.
yeah.
He worked
Uh,
security for a while.
I told some folks when my dad, the second time he was head coach at Piedmont, I told this story the other day. We had a absolute disaster. This was the summer of 1980, which that was the hottest summer ever on record. Broke all kind of record highs that July, and we were in the middle of a drought. So we had Georgia Championship Wrestling, Tommy Wildfire Rich, who was the biggest star in the world at that time on TBS, on WTBS, was coming to be there. And we had the bright idea. This was the Piedmont Quarterback Club fundraiser. Georgia Championship Wrestling, Saturday night, July 24th, 1980, at the old stadium in Piedmont, the old Victory Field, not where the Field of Champions is now. And we were going to have Tommy Rich. We had 3,000, 4,000 people there, unbelievable, coming from everywhere to see Tommy Rich. He was a big national television star, and he was in Piedmont, Alabama. And right at bell time, we had 2 guys. One of them's from up kind of y'all's direction. I had a guy named Jimmy Powell, and the Mighty Yankee, mask guy. They got in the ring, and about that time, thunder and lightning hit, and we hadn't had rain in about 2 months, and it came the gosh awfulest thunderstorm you've ever seen. Rained and thundered and lightning all night long. We had to refund all the tickets. Had to refund every ticket. That was chaos. People were taking shelter in the old gym at Piedmont High School. Had to cancel the thing. We brought them back in October for another one in the gym. But it was, we were going, Georgia Championship Wrestling and the Piedmont Quarterback Club were going to make a killing that night. I mean, there were people coming from everywhere. It's going to be the biggest fundraiser in the history of Piedmont Quarterback Club. And it just, it was a disaster. A disaster. I'll never forget. They rang the bell, and about that time, a bolt of lightning hit over there just on the other side of the stadium. Everybody starts running. The wrestlers start running to get to the dressing room. It was unbelievable.
Speaking of the CEO of River City Media, Randy Cunningham, he says, somebody say something about fire up, wildfire.
Yeah, that's Tommy Wildfire Rich. Yeah, yeah, Tommy Rich.
John,
I, I, I'm
since we
old enough
know
to
this,
remember when he was 19 years old when he first started back in about 76. I remember when he first came to Georgia, and he just one of those guys that just had the charisma. He had it, especially in the South. Uh, and, girls loved him. He just had the guys reluctantly loved him, because he just had this charisma, that just the blonde hair. He was from Hendersonville, Tennessee, Southern country boy, wildfire. Somebody say something about fired up, and he could turn the crowd on. That was an amazing night, not in a good way.
yeah, if you get a text from us, it may be on a Thursday night for you to join us for one of our wrestling shows. So,
Oh man, I can talk it now. It's uh, I have I used to when I was in high school because I didn't have a date in high school. I was a complete total nerd, no hope of that. I had a friend of mine who was about the same way. We got this station. We could turn the antenna and get this station in Atlanta, channel 36, and they had in the 80s, mid 80s, they had 8 hours of pro wrestling. Uh, Started at like 6 o'clock and went till 2 o'clock in the morning, and they had like all the territory days. So they had Florida, Georgia, Continental, World Class, Mid South, Pacific Northwest, AWA, Mid Atlantic. Uh,
oh, he froze up. We
Rose
lost him.
up again.
Oh,
There
yeah,
there he
yeah.
is. He's back.
somebody's calling through. But
We got you
they
back. Go
had,
ahead.
that was, and so we'd sit there and watch all 8 hours of that. And so back in those days, there's no internet. So I had heard about these guys, but that's how I knew about the Von Erichs and the Freebirds out in Texas, and Jerry Lawler in Memphis, and you know Dusty Rhodes down in Florida at that time. He was kind of bumping around from everywhere. Blackjack Mulligan, all those guys, Rock and Roll Express when they were first starting in Mid Atlantic. We'd sit there and watch all that. Watch all those guys.
I'm not gonna
I
lie
used
to you.
to I used to be in the Chattanooga area, and Harry Thornton in Chattanooga, and I got and when we would go down and watch live, and it was Dusty Rhodes, Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2.
Oh,
I even got to see the Bushwhackers. I got to see the
oh yeah,
Bushwhackers before they got popular. But
yeah.
there's nothing
They were the
there's
sheep
nothing
herders
like
then.
going live.
Yeah. Oh yeah, nothing like going live. When I was a kid growing up, we lived in I lived in Valley. My dad was coach at Valley, and then it went. That's when he got kind of out of it. And every 6 weeks, if I made all A's on my report card, he'd say, "What do you want? I'm going to do something for you." He said, "I want to go to wrestling Wednesday night, 8:15, Columbus Municipal Auditorium. They had all the Georgia Championship wrestling stars, and we would go and see all those. The Bushwhackers." One of the first places they started was in Continental in Birmingham in Southeastern. It used to be called Southeastern Championship Wrestling, and they had another guy with them then that was called named Lord Jonathan Boyd, but they were called the Sheep Herders. They became the Bushwhackers in WWF, but in Continental they were called the New Zealand Sheep Herders. And I think Bushwhackers is probably a more marketable name than Sheep Herders, so that's how they got the name changed when they went up there. They spent a little time in WCW, and then Vince McMahon brought them to WWF. I'm
Randy
telling you
said that
guys, we
station.
can go all night on this now.
Randy said that station you're talking about in Atlanta was WATL.
WATL, Channel 36. Joe Pedicino and Bonnie Blackstone. They hosted that. They would kind of set it up between shows and say, "Oh, now we're gonna take you to Memphis. We're gonna go to Southern Championship Wrestling in Memphis. Lance Russell this week. Bill Superstar Dundee and Jerry the King Lawler. Their feuds continuing, and they'd set it up, and then they'd show the whole uninterrupted hour show from Memphis."
John, when we got you on here tonight, I never thought we'd be talking about wrestling at the end of the show, to be honest.
If
And
you didn't ask the right people, because there are people out there watching this right now. They're going, "Oh gosh, they already got John started on wrestling now," and this is, I get excited about Alabama football, and I get excited about high school football, but man, when we start talking about wrestling, wow, it's
you see the guy that's looking over me right now. That's a picture of Bear Bryant that's over my shoulder there.
oh yeah,
So
I am blessed, Howie. I really mean this sincerely. I am blessed that I got to live the Bear Bryant days and the Nick Saban days. And there's fewer people that can say that now as we get some age to us. But, being able to, I think I went to 4 football games when Coach Bryant was the head coach at Alabama. The second one I went to was the Sugar Bowl that was played in the Superdome when the Superdome was brand new. This was 1975, and they were playing Penn State, not the goal line stand. This was 3 years before. And when Alabama, we had lost 8 straight bowl games, or not won 8 straight bowl games. I think there was a tie in there. And so hadn't won a bowl game in 8 years. And the big thing about that was there were a lot of big things. Nobody had ever seen a video screen in a stadium before. Nobody had ever been to a football game indoors, because the only other stadium that was indoors was the Astrodome, and it wasn't anything like the Superdome. And then Coach Bryant was like, "My mama told me that to never wear a hat indoors." He said, "I'm not going to wear a hat to this football game." And everybody thought, "Oh, Coach Bryant, he's going to wear the houndstooth. There's no way he's not going to wear his houndstooth hat." So everybody, the buzz in the stadium, I can remember sitting in the upper deck in the end zone there, and everybody's waiting for Alabama to come out for warm-ups. And my dad he was like, "Is Coach Bryant going to wear it?" And I want to tell you, Coach Bryant came out of the tunnel, and I think if you go back and look, he played 4 Sugar Bowls in the Superdome when he was coach there, 75, 77, 78, 79, and he never wore his houndstooth hat. He never wore a hat in the Superdome because his mama told him not to wear a hat indoors.
wow.
But everybody was asking that night, is Coach Bryant going to wear his hat? No, he did not.
Wow.
Hey, John, I'm a huge Tennessee fan, season ticket holder, but I'm
Yeah,
probably
I
one of the
saw
few
that, Phil.
people.
Mercy.
Yeah, but I got to meet Bear Bryant when I was very young, and I've also got his autograph. I bet many people can't say that.
I never met him, but when we were living down in Valley, there was a guy named Jerry Brown that was a wide receiver from Valley, and he brought me an autograph of Coach Bryant, and I don't know where it is. It
Yeah.
didn't seem like a big deal in 1977. It was a big deal in 1977, but not like it would be now. I never got to meet Coach Bryant. I was at his 300th win was against Kentucky at Legion Field in 1980, and they beat them 45-0. We came in on Graymont Avenue side of Legion Field and came in at ground level. And I remember I was 13 years old and walking in at ground level, and Coach Bryant was leaning against that goal post in that south end zone. And now that was for 13-year-old Jon Holder from small town Alabama, and walking in and being as far as from here to 20 feet away from Bear Bryant leaning against the goalpost. That was big stuff. I'm blessed to have seen both, lived both those eras of Coach Bryant and Coach Saban.
When I met him in Chattanooga, I was just a young tot naturally. When he come out with that book in around 76, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in Chattanooga at a bookstore and he was signing autographs and taking pictures. And my dad took us, and he was talking to people. And when kids would come up, people could say stuff and he totally ignored them, wouldn't pay attention to anything they said. But now kids was standing there, he talked to ask you if you played football, how your grades were. I can remember him asking me questions, and I didn't know who he was, other than he had a houndstooth hat on and he wore his sport jacket, and he talked and had that real gruff voice. And he asked us all kinds of questions, and I just thought I knew he was a celebrity, but I didn't know who he was.
Phil, that was your opportunity to come over to the right side right there. You could
Yeah.
have come over and been a Crimson Tide fan right there. That was your shot.
That wasn't
you
never
got
going
Coach
to happen. Yeah.
John, I'm going to see if I can make you a little jealous, and then we're going to get you out of here. A week from Saturday night, I will be in Atlanta watching Saturday night's main event.
Yeah, that's going to be the Goldberg retirement weekend. That's
Yes, sir.
Goldberg and Gunther are gonna Bill Goldberg is 58. For people who don't know, Bill Goldberg was all SEC nose guard at University of Georgia back in the day. And then one of the great stories in pro wrestling history. This is a great example of not the promoters making a star, the fans made Bill Goldberg the star. They just latched onto him in 1996. And so Bill Goldberg probably, being an Atlanta guy, I think he played for the Falcons and when he played pro ball. And so he's going to have his last match, his retirement match there at, State Farm Arena. And it'll be huge. I've read he's been training for about a year for this, because at 58 years old, he's not the Bill Goldberg of 25 years ago, but he's in pretty doggone good shape, and I think it's going to be an awesome thing. But Goldberg is probably one of my favorite guys. That thing where he had that long winning streak in '96, I was there the night at the Georgia Dome when he beat Hogan on Monday Nitro to win both titles, and that place was louder than any Iron Bowl I've been to, and I've been to 25 Iron Bowls, and I've including the Kick Six, and the Kick Six was no louder than when Bill Goldberg beat Hulk Hogan that night at the Georgia Dome in front of about 46,000. So yeah, I am jealous, because you're going to be there for that weekend, the Saturday night's main event, and then they've got they used to be called pay-per-view, it's PLE now that they have. That'll be the big focus of the whole weekend, is Goldberg's last match.
Yeah, absolutely. John, we can sit here and talk for hours and hours, but we're going to let you get going. Sorry that we kept you so long, but
No.
Before you get going, plug your after the game podcast and everything.
All right. After the game is live on Facebook and YouTube every Friday night, beginning August 22nd. We start at 10 o'clock. Up until about 9:30, 9:45, I'm listening to Jeff and Phil, and then we get ready to do our show. Then we're on from 10. We're supposed to be 10 till about midnight. But we usually go till, that's one of the great things, or worst things about the internet and streaming, is we don't have any time frames. So you get me and Coach Short and Chad Barnett wound up, and we get some coaches wound up in there. And we typically, to be honest with you, go to about 1 a.m. with Friday night with scores, highlights, guests, all kind of things going on there on Friday nights, covering this part of the state down here.
Where can we find it at?
Facebook and YouTube. Go to high school. You can search for After the Game. It'll come up. You can search for High School Football Alabama. It's kind of like High School Football Alabama is kind of the is the name of the, I guess, the company, the network, and then under that, the show, our show is After the Game. And we got a couple of other products. I mentioned the online magazine. We also do in December. We'll do a show that has to do with the reclassification, focused on our area. When the reclass is announced, we'll do a live show there. But you can search High School Football Alabama. You can search After the Game. You can even search on YouTube. You can search Jon Holder, and it'll come up. And if you won't watch past shows, go to YouTube or Facebook, and you can go back to last fall, and all those shows are archived, and you can watch them all there.
Awesome. Good deal. And every guest that we have on, before we let them go, we always make sure we let them give a shout out to anybody that they want to.
Oh wow! Well, I'm gonna shout out to my wife and daughter. They're probably, they're not wondering where I am. They know I'm talking, and so but I'm gonna give a shout out to them. They put up with a lot from me. Let me just tell you, they put up from a lot from me, being gone a lot of weekends in the falls, just not there. And but shout out to them tonight.
Awesome. Good deal. We want to make sure that you come back on here sometime soon, talk a little bit more football. And I want to make sure that you come back on our Thursday night wrestling show at some time and talk
Oh
about some of
yeah.
your wrestling experience. Because, we're huge into wrestling. I told you, a week from Saturday, I'll be in Atlanta for 2 nights of wrestling. And not only do we do the big stuff, but we do a lot of small stuff as well, as far as a lot of local promotions too. So,
one of my goals is, they have at the 431 Sports Arena in Boaz. Every time I go by there, I'm like, one Saturday night, I'm going to come to the 431 Sports Arena and watch midget wrestling and whatever else they got going on. But, that's how I grew up. I can remember, last thing I'll tell you, I saw Stone Cold Steve Austin at the Ohatchee High School gym. Yeah. And dressed in that dressing room with the football team dressed in. I told the kids out there a few years ago, I said, you know who dressed in this dressing room right here, don't you? Who? I said, Stone Cold Steve. They thought I was a complete liar. They thought this guy's off his rocker. Stone Cold Steve Austin has never been to Ohatchee. And I'm like, oh, yeah. WCW, actually, before they hit it real big, when he was still there as Stunning Steve Austin, he was there at Ohatchee High School. Yeah. So that's the way it used to be, the high school gyms, National Guard armories. That's where the wrestling was. And you could see some big stars. I saw Ric Flair at the Oxford Civic Center one time, defending the world title against Brad Armstrong.
I saw Sid Vicious at Fife Gym one night.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all.
He was the main event, but I saw Sid Vicious there. But John, we appreciate you coming on, and
you got it.
And you think I might be joking, but we're gonna be hitting you up for some wrestling shows before.
Come on, I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
So, Phil, you have anything you want to close out with?
No, I just appreciate you coming on, John. Good, enjoy getting that way in your media days.
The media days are coming. I know I'll see you at Etowah County for sure, coming up later on in the month.
Yeah, because I think that's the 22nd. I believe it is.
22nd. Got an FC.
Yeah, and
we got that.
Cherokee
We got
County
FCA,
one. I think it's on that Saturday. Yeah.
Yep. So. Yep. I've got on the agenda. I've got Cherokee, Etowah, Calhoun, St. Clair, Talladega, and then they have a tri-county media day down in Wadley. Coach Short asking about Wadley. Down at Wadley that has the Cleburne, Clay, and Randolph County schools.
Yeah. So you're going to fix the big easy test.
My July is just about done. I'm trying to squeeze in a trip to Six Flags in there, to ride the roller coaster. So
anyway, hey, tell me this: I don't know what it's called now, but it's up north of Cincinnati. It used to be called Kings Island. Did you ever go ride the beast there?
I have that the two in Ohio, Kings Islands and Cincinnati, and then they got Cedar Point, which is outside Cleveland and Sandusky. It's got the most.
Yeah.
It's got the most roller coasters in the world. Those are, I'd say, my top three I haven't been to that I'm trying to get to are Cedar Point, Kings Island, and Six Flags Magic Mountain in California.
Oh, I tell
Cedar
you,
Point and
yeah,
Magic Mountain go back and forth with roller coasters. Yeah.
go to Kings Island, ride the beast. It's fun, and when you're on your way up there, if you get the opportunity, go see the Ark up in Kentucky because it's on the way.
That is on my list. I've been to a lot of places, and the Ark and Cincinnati and Kings Island is on the list. That's going to be I might turn that. I don't know if I can get a full vacation out of that, but maybe a 4-day deal out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, John, I'm fixing to get off here. Go
All
finish
right.
watching Raw. Finish watching Raw.
Yeah,
So,
that Raw's on tonight, and that's
it
I
came
got
on
to get
early
home and
tonight.
watch that too. What's
It
that?
came on early tonight. It came on early. It came on at 5 o'clock tonight. So
Yeah.
it's
They're
it's probably,
over in. Are they still over in Saudi Arabia?
no,
Or are they
they
back?
were in Pittsburgh. They're in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. I knew they were. The backup plan was, because they had all the bombing and stuff going on. The backup plan for that pay-per-view they had in Saudi Arabia was they had booked somewhere in Ohio or Pennsylvania. They had a couple of locations where they were going to do that event, but they wound up not having to. They had their crew got stuck in Qatar, and they couldn't get them in there for a couple of days. But they finally got everybody in there and had the show. Yep.
Absolutely. John, James, thanks for joining us. Sorry about all the technical difficulties early on.
That's
but,
all on my end. That's all on my end.
So, but we appreciate you joining us, and we're looking forward to having you back on very soon. So,
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one. Enjoyed it.
yes, sir.
Thank you, John.
John Holder, Phil Harris.
Thank
I'm Howard
you.
Cheney. Good night and God bless everybody.